like I'm assuming you were profitable from almost day one. I remember this. How much salary were you taking home?
अभी भी 1000 कुछ सैलरी लेता हूँ आप आज currently today.
Kirana cart was a different solution to the same problem. We realized that, so we tried it out, we launched it in Jan of 2021, and within 4-5 weeks itself, we realized that, okay, there's a lot of things that inherently are wrong with this model. It will not make money. There's a lot of things broken with the customer experience. And so we decided to pivot.
Your last startup had a lot of learnings that helped you to build what Zepto is today. What were those few things? Why don't you tell us more about that? And also, like Prafull just said, was Kirana Cart a MVP of what Zepto is today? Because I'm also curious to know this.
In some senses, yes. Let me take it bit by bit. The problem we were trying to solve is the same.
मैंने बचपन से मैं जब 15-14 का था हम लोग गांव में पतंगे बेचते थे. Then we used to sell गर्मी में पेप्सी का सी या 3 रुपए का 5 रुपए का तो वो हम बेचते थे मैं और छोटा भाई.
250 रुपए का फन स्कूल पेमेंट करके 1000 रुपए में बेचता था.
एक मैं बचपन में ना पिताजी से बहुत अच्छी कहानी सुनता था वैभव कि एक किसान होता है वो आम की लकड़ियां काटता है और बाजार में बेचने जाता है.
Super excited to be here. I have two good friends here with me, KV and Prafull. I can't really say that, we have never met each other. So I'm going to ask you tough questions. A few are going to repeat, but, when Groww told me that you have to host this session, I was like, this is going to be fun. I know these guys, so I can pull in their leg as well whenever is needed. So all the audience are up for a treat, right? Introductions, everybody knows all of who you are and what you guys do, and if people still don't know, then they should Google. There's enough information, not chat GPT it may be. But I'm gonna jump right into the questions. When I was in college and मैं जब बोलता था यार मुझे startup करना है, I was also 19 when I started up called as Crazy Heads, but it's nothing close to what Zepto does or what MBA Chaiwala did eventually. But, when I was starting up, I was always told by my professors or people around me, they will be like, yaar, kyun startup kar raha hai? Get a job, get experience, right? Then startup kar. Yeah, are you starting up because you're not getting a job or you're scared you'll not get a job? So on and on and on. I'm sure you must have heard these stories as well. There are a lot of students listening to this. My question is, why did you decide not to wait and you took a leap instead of taking up a job and giving a little more time? Startup क्यों किया? दोनों के लिए question है.
You want to start, Prafull?
I think I can start. Thank you Vaibhav and Kevin. It's so good to see you guys. So ये question हमेशा ही रहता है वैभव कि कब चालू करे, वेट करे कि जॉब करके चालू करे कि थोड़ा एक्सपीरियंस लेके चालू करे भाई. बट ये ना इसका सवाल का जवाब कभी मिलेगा भी नहीं और वो अंत कभी होता नहीं है. वो इंतजार ना कभी खत्म नहीं होता है. तो मैं इसको एक अलग ढंग से बोलता हूँ सबको कि इफ यू कांट स्टार्ट समथिंग टुडे, व्हाट इज द गारंटी कि आप 1 महीने बाद या 1 साल बाद शुरू कर लोगे? पहली बात तो ये, इफ यू वांट टू रियली स्टार्ट यू कैन स्टार्ट इट इमीडिएटली. एंड फॉर मी पर्सनली इफ यू टेल मी कि व्हाई डिड आई गेट इनटू एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप बोलो, बिजनेस बोलो, धंधा बोलो, तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि आप बता रहे वो डिलीवर्स मोर देन व्हाट इज आस्क्ड. कि मुझे आप बोलोगे कि ये लेक्चर में इकट्ठे बात कर दी तो आई कैन स्पीक फॉर 3 hours. सो एंटरप्रेन्योर्स आर द पीपल जिसको ज़्यादा डिलीवरी देने की आदत है, जिसको कुछ माइल्स और दौड़ने की आदत है. तो वो आई एम दैट गाय. आई कैन नॉट लिमिट माई सेल्फ विद माई ओन पोटेंशियल. एंड समटाइम्स व्हाट हैपेंस इन बिजनेस एंड एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप, आपकी बहुत सारे पहलू आपको जिंदगी के समझ आते हैं. आपका सेल्स अच्छा हो सकता है, मार्केटिंग अच्छा हो सकता है, शायद आज 90-20-20 जो आपका टेक अच्छा होगा. पर जैसे वैभव मैं तुझे अभी सुन रहा हूँ, मेरे आई एम जस्ट लिस्टिंग टू, मुझे लगा यूर गुड स्पीकर ही बना सर. सो कल को अपना ग्रोथ स्कूल के अलावा यू कैन बी अ ग्रेट स्पीकर. तो बहुत सारे पोटेंशियल्स एंड बहुत सारी आपकी एक अलग हिडन ट्रेजर बोलता हूँ मैं उसको कि यू गेट टू मीट योर सेल्फ एट द हाइस्ट लेवल. क्या अच्छा मुझे ये भी आता है, अरे भाई ये भी कर सकता हूँ, अच्छा मुझे ये नहीं आता है भैया, तो मुझे मेरे बेस्ट को और बेस्ट बनाना है, या मेरे गुड को बेटर बनाना और बेटर को बेस्ट बनाना, या मेरे वर्स्ट को वर्स्ट ही रहने देना है, मेरे बेस्ट को बेस्ट बनाना है. तो दिस काइंड ऑफ सेपरेशन यू कैन मेक, विच वाई मुझे ऐसा था कि मैं करूँगा. एंड दूसरा मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि ये ह्यूमन बॉडी आपको जब तक मिला है, यू कैन यूज द बेस्ट ऑफ इट, मे बी दिमाग हो, बॉडी हो. तो दैट्स व्हाई आई गेट एंड गॉन इनटू इट कि भाई यार इसको खींचते, इसको स्ट्रेच करते, लेट्स डू इट समथिंग.
I think you're right. I think most people say that you should probably spend some time working, get a job, and then get some experience, and then start. I heard that a lot, right, growing up in school and all of that. That was the plan. The plan originally was for both of us, both Adit and I, was that we'll go to university, work somewhere for a few years, and then eventually start up, because that was seemed to be, a pretty defined path. But our story was a little bit different, where we just found ourselves in the first COVID lockdown with a problem to solve, right? And the two of us had solved a lot of problems throughout school, and this seemed like another interesting problem. We were stuck at home, we had nothing to do, and so he said, okay, let's solve this problem. Initially, just for the problem of getting groceries during lockdown for our neighborhood, right? Restricted to our neighborhood. It was just us in auto rickshaws doing deliveries, right? And things like that. And so that then snowballed, right? The plan then was not, okay, let's build this large business doing a lot of revenue with a lot of people and all that. That was not the intent that we started it out with. It was more just like, let's solve a problem. And then that snowballed from there. That being said, I think that there are more than enough examples that we had of people that had started up successfully. People within India. You have Ritesh from Oyo, or you have a lot of examples from the US. And so while it seems a little bit like the less walked down path, I think that there are still quite a few examples of people that have done it successfully. I think it also is a function of, is the thing that you want to start something that requires a lot of domain expertise, right? Like if you want to start a biotech company, right, maybe it makes sense to do a little bit of research and do all of that before, right, and spend some time working in a lab. But that again varies. I don't think that there's a hard and fast rule for any of those things.
You don't need background to deliver groceries, what you would say?
Maybe not.
Yeah, but I'm sure it needs something to deliver in 10 minutes. So good job, guys. You guys kind of defined the edge, and so did Prafull, right? This is awesome. This is a great start, right? Like, based on what you guys said, I have a very strong feeling that there are a few things that happened in your past before you were 19 or 20, or when you were in college, or a few things that led you guys to this point where you could comfortably say that I can take the plunge. Like KV, you had that comfort with your co-founder, but I'm sure there were a lot of things that happened in the past, maybe from your childhood, which eventually built that aptitude for entrepreneurship. You know what I mean? It's a lonely journey, man. You know it, I know it, Prafull knows it, everybody who's in it knows it, right? So let's start from you here. Like, what is that happened in the past? Were there something like this?
We've tried to reflect on this a little bit, right? To figure out, how all of this happened. I don't think that there were one or two things. I think in terms of, both of us had a knack for building things. So both of us have been friends since, third grade or fourth grade or something. So, known each other since we were kids. And throughout school, we just, so I started programming pretty early. And so, we just try building things just for the sake of building. I think that is one like, never with the intent of, okay, let's make a lot of money from this or whatever, but hey, this is something cool to build, let's build it, right? I think that's one. The other thing that for me personally, for both of us, other than I, was that online to offline businesses just seemed very interesting, just because I think as we were going through school, Uber and Amazon was getting really big and all of that. And, the idea that you could press a button on your phone and things in the real world would start moving, right, was something that just perplexed us. And so in fact, a lot of the things that we would build, even during school, were online to offline type businesses, right? So there was this carpooling app, right, for school commutes, right, like for people that are going to school and things like that. So obviously nothing was same scale as anywhere close to the scale of Zepto, but they were just interesting ideas to work on. So I think it was just that, just like building things for the sake of building, and just trying to solve interesting problems.
Awesome. Prafull, aap batao, sir.
Yeah, my life and my journey has been totally different from you guys. So I come from a very humble, I'm born and brought up in Groww, एक छोटे से गांव में इंदौर के पास से. तो मैंने बचपन से, मैं जब 15-14 का था, हम लोग गांव में पतंगे बेचते थे पतंग के सीजन में. और आपको पता नहीं, मेरे गांव में ना, मेरा पहला कंप्यूटर मेरे गांव में मेरे पास था. तो मेमोरी कार्ड चलती थी ऐसे सैंडिस्क की, 4 GB की, 2 GB की, राइट. तो मैं अपने उसमें ना इंदौर से गाने भरवा के लाता था, और 50-50 रुपये में ना उनके मेमोरी कार्ड्स भरता था मोबाइल की. तो वहाँ से आई स्टार्टेड माई जर्नी. देन वी यूज टू सेल गर्मी में पेप्सी, पॉप्सिकल्स या 3 रुपये का, 5 रुपये का. तो वो हम बेचते थे, मैं और छोटा भाई. सो टुडे MBA चावला का बैकबोन विवेक भी है, वी बैक एंड ऑल. तो वहाँ से जर्नी चालू हुई. देन वहाँ से बादशाह शहर में, धार में, इंदौर में ट्रैवल करते थे. तो अच्छे ताऊजी हमारे रहते, उनका TV का शौक था. तो पिताजी क्या करते थे, वहाँ से टीवी लाते थे, पुराने टीवी बेचते थे, वहाँ से पुरानी लाके गाँव में बेचते थे। तो आई यूज्ड टू डू जर्नलिंग विद पापा का मनी, कि 500 का टीवी 700 में बढ़ दिया, कि 2000 का टीवी 2200 में बेच दिया। तो वहाँ पे पैसा समझ आया, 2200 समझ आया, 2200 का 2500 समझ आया, 2500 का 3000 समझ में आया। सो आप अगर 100 रुपए का कोई चीज़ खरीद रहे हो, तो उसमें जो 10 रुपए का मार्जिन होता है ना, आदमी को लगता है 190 रुपए का चीज़ है ना, क्या फर्क पड़ता है, 100 रुपए में दे दो ना, या 100 का चीज़ 110 में कर दो ना। बट दैट 10% इज अ वेरी बिग अमाउंट। इफ यू कॉन्ट कैलकुलेट दी 10% ऑफ 100 रुपीज, देन डेज विल कम जहाँ पे करोड़ का 10% लाख रुपए होगा, या 100 करोड़ का 10% विल बी 1 करोड़, दैट विल बी ह्यूज मनी। सो हम लोगों ने 1 रुपया, 10 रुपया, 100 रुपए का वैल्यू समझा, हम परसेंटेज का जो समझता ना, वो 100 रुपए भी अगर आप कर सकते हो तो लाख पे भी करोगे, करोड़ पे भी करोगे। तो वहाँ से आया। फिर आई वॉज अगेन देन फिर बिजनेस किया। फिर मम्मी पापा बोलते भाई पढ़ना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि उनको वो पेप्सी बेच के धंधे वाला समझ नहीं आता। और वो एक्यूमेंट, वो नॉलेज जो इंसान गया, वो कैलकुलेशन बहुत अच्छा गया, मेंटल मसल बिल्डअप हुआ है, रिलेशन बनाना सीखा, कैरेक्टर बिल्डिंग क्या होता है, लोगों को परखना सीखा कि किसकी जेब से कितना पैसा निकाल सकते हैं, किसको कितनी वैल्यू पता है। फिर पढ़ाई में चले गए, एमबीए के दौरान में आया, तो यार फिर समझ आ गई कि 2-3 साल में आई गॉट टू नो थिंग्स कि दिस विल नॉट वर्क। कितना भी एमबीए करती, कहीं भी पहुंच जाओगे, 1 लाख 2 लाख 4 लाख की नौकरी होगी, ये कैलकुलेशन था। तो फिर छोड़ के आई स्टार्टेड वर्किंग इन मैकडॉनल्ड्स। फिर रोड पे चाय का ठेला डाला। द रीजन आई स्टार्टेड ठेला बिकॉज उस टाइम पे 20 लाख का इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं था टू स्टार्ट, और फंडिंग भी नहीं आता था, फंडिंग कहाँ से रहे, वीसी कहाँ से रहे, ये कुछ नहीं पता था। और ले भी सकते थे तो पहले डर लगता था कि साला कोई अपने को फंडिंग देगा तो अपनी कंपनी तो नहीं उठा के लेके चले जाएगा। सो मैंने डर रहते थे। वो एक लिमिटेशन ऑफ द प्रोप्राइटरशिप माइंडसेट होता है। प्राइवेट लिमिटेड या लिमिटेड कंपनी आईपीओ को कुछ पता नहीं होता है, वीसी फंडिंग क्या होता है, वैल्यूएशन क्या होता है, ये कुछ पता नहीं था पहले। तो स्टार्टेड, और मुझे ऐसा लगता है बहुत सारी ऑडियंस सुन रही होगी, तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है व्हेन यू स्टार्ट योर जर्नी ना, डोंट मच थिंक अबाउट मनी, यू शुड स्टार्ट क्रिएटिंग वैल्यूज की क्या वैल्यू आप क्रिएट कर रहे हो, इवेंचुअली मनी विल कम। और अगर जैसे हमें बहुत जल्दी वहाँ पे पता चल गया था 100 का 500 कैसे होता है, फिर भी अपने पैसे को कभी प्रायोरिटी नहीं। टुडे इट्सेल्फ आज इतना हमारा बड़ा व्यापार है, आज 250 से ज़्यादा लोग हाउस ऑफिस में काम करते, टेलर पे काम करते, 250 से ज़्यादा आउटलेट्स है। फिर भी हमारे मन में ऐसा नहीं होता कि पैसा कितना आ रहा है या पैसा कितना जा रहा है। इट्स ऑल अबाउट कि कितने लोगों को हम टच कर पा रहे हैं, कितने लोगों को सर्व कर पा रहे हैं, भारत पे कहाँ हमारा एक इम्पैक्ट हो रहा है, प्रभाव हो रहा है। क्योंकि मनी एंड फेम इवेंचुअली विल कम, दिस इज साइड बाई प्रोडक्ट ऑफ एवरीथिंग। सो ऐसे जर्नी चालू हुआ वैभव मेरा।
This is amazing. Yeah, I totally relate with both of you because मैंने भी जब I first sold a fountain pen, 15 रुपये 10 रुपये का फाउंटेन पेन 15 रुपये या 20 रुपये में बेचा था और बहुत डांट पड़ी थी उसके वजह से। उसके बाद व्हेन आई वाज 4th और 5th ग्रेड आई स्टार्टेड टू सेल और फ्लिप बेब्लेड्स। 250 रुपये का फन स्कूल बेब्लेड खरीद के 1000 रुपये में बेचता था बाई गोइंग। एंड मेरा मार्केटिंग तब यही होता था कि कॉम्पिटिशन में जाके हराओ, और लोग पूछते थे dude what Beyblade is this is crazy, and I got it from the US and you have to pay 1,000 rupees for that, and I sold so much that my father got thick gatta of money in my pocket and said पैसे कैसे आए, from there to robotics and started building robots for kids, and then college में जब आया again right bunch of experiments, first started discovering Android करके एक था, वो flop हो गया। उसके बाद started Crazy Heads, ran that for a few years, उसके बाद मज़ा नहीं आया। But that is where my journey slightly changed, where I said, you know what, I want some experience because I'm not able to think beyond what I understand. That's when I joined Uber, and today we started Road School, after some time again. So I think the biggest takeaway, I'm glad all of us resonated on the same point. For everybody who's listening to this, is if you're in college and if you want to start up or have an intent to start up, or you imagine yourself to be an entrepreneur at any point of time, start working on little things. Don't assume everything to become a $1 billion company, or don't assume everything to become startup. Start doing projects, start doing side hustles, start doing assignments chote and learn. You never know which one will become an MBA Chaiwala or a Zepto or Flipkart or Amazon for that matter.
Or Growth School.
I'm trying to be humble a little here.
We are here to support you, bro.
नहीं उसी तो लोगों पे बैठा हूँ। But so I'll move on to the next one, right, very quickly. देखो यार, like as a college student, I know a lot of college students. There are this 20-25% of the cream who I call them as enthu cutlets, right? They want to do a lot of things, and these are the kind of people we eventually come and bring them on board as interns and full-time guys as well. But they have like a lot of ideas, right? All of us did. ये भी करना है, वो भी करना है, ये भी फोड़ देंगे, वो भी फोड़ देंगे, right? And we think of a lot of business ideas, right? but it kind of becomes hard for you to narrow down to one and double down on it, right? How do you decide which idea is worth going after? Because as a student, I don't anticipate them to understand TAM, WAM, they are very, very broad topics, right, for them to understand. That is one. And I'll just continue the question with one more very, very important point, that everybody who wants to start up, irrespective if it's a student or not, everybody thinks about startup idea aate hi isko funding milega ki nahi, right? So I strongly believe there are kind of businesses which should be bootstrapped and there are kind of businesses which should be funded, and we have a mixed bag in the same house today. So I wanted your take on both of this, which idea to pick up, how to know which idea to pick up and build a business and double down on, and number two, how to even know that is my business something that needs funding or something that could be bootstrapped and I can make money. Maybe we'll go with Prafull, who runs a bootstrapped company, a massive bootstrapped company, MBA Chaiwala.
So there are so many, पहले तो आपको थोड़ा बहुत अपने आप को स्टाइल आपको समझना पड़ेगा कि आर यू अ लॉन्ग टर्म मैराथन वाला बंदा हो, 10 साल 15 साल 20 साल खेल सकते हो मार्केट में कि नहीं, क्योंकि बिजनेस इज अ मैराथन टू बी ऑनेस्ट. इफ यू आर हियर फॉर 2 years 4 years 3 months 6 महीने पे बिलियनर, ये बिलियनर तो छोड़ो, करोड़पति भी सोचोगे ना आप तो ये इट्स बुलशिट. करेक्ट. फर्स्ट. सेकंड, मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि इफ यू कांट पुट समथिंग एक्टिवली, जैसे आजकल यूट्यूब पे बहुत चलता है पैसिव इनकम कैसे कमाएं, भाई उसको पहले एक्टिव इनकम तो कमाने दे, फिर पैसिव का बता रहा हूँ. तो बिजनेस में भी कैसा होता है कि पहले कोई एक वटवृक्ष कल्पवृक्ष या ऐसा बड़ा मोटा पेड़ तो बड़ा करो अपना, जिससे फिर तुम साइड इनकम करना. एक मैं बचपन में ना पिताजी से बहुत अच्छी कहानी सुनता था वैभव, कि एक किसान होता है, वो आम की लकड़ियां काटता है और बाजार में बेचने जाता है, तो उसको 100 रुपया मिलता है. करेक्ट. पर उसको कोई एक ज्ञानी आदमी मिलता है, बोले कि यार तुमको लकड़ी काटना है और खेतों से काटनी है और बाजार में बेचनी है, तो आम की लकड़ियां क्यों काटते हो, चंदन की लकड़ियां काटो, वो 1000 रुपये में बिकी. तो पहले आपको काटना और बेचना सीखना पड़ेगा, फिर आम बेचो, चंदन बेचो, गुलाब जामुन बेचो, वो बिक जाएगा. तो दिस इज वेरी फंडामेंटल एंड बेसिक फंडा ऑफ बिजनेस. फर्स्ट. सेकंड, मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि आप ना, अगर आपके पास 24 घंटे हैं तो एटलीस्ट 8 घंटे 10 घंटे 9 घंटे कोई एक प्रोडक्ट पे तो दो ही दो. फिर आपको 2 साइड हसल करनी है, तो उसके लिए आप सोना कम करो, अपनी आदतें जो कहीं आप टाइम पास कर रहे हो उसको फिर वो वहाँ इन्वेस्ट करो, ताकि आपका एक पोर्टफोलियो ऑफ स्किल हो गया, पोर्टफोलियो छोटी छोटी कंपनीज का बिल्डअप हो गया, वो चलेगा. बट आपको कोई एक गड्ढा बड़ा खोदना पड़ेगा, जो कुआं हो या बड़ी नदी हो या तालाब हो, फिर आप छोटे छोटे पॉइंट्स बनाओ या थोड़ा बहुत बाल्टी बनाओ, इट्स ओके, चलेगा. करेक्ट. थर्ड चीज, मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि 1000 दिन या 1200 दिन का रूल होता है बिजनेस में, जो इतना मैं समझता हूँ. मुझे टेक बिजनेस इतना नहीं पता, फंडिंग वाला खेल थोड़ा बहुत पता है, ऑल्दो वी आर नॉट अ फंडेड कंपनी. पर अगर आप 1000 दिन 1200 दिन अपने बिजनेस पे या किसी आइडिया पे, या बिजनेस नहीं भी कर रहे हो, कोई स्किल पे काम कर रहे हो, सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड हो, कोई टीचर बनना चाहता है या कोई सर्विस बेस्ड काम करना चाहता है, इट्स नॉट नेसेसरी कि एवरीबडी बिकम्स अ स्टार्टअप गाय, एवरीबडी बिकम्स एंटरप्रेन्योर, बिकॉज सब चीज के अलग अलग पैरामीटर्स है, उसके प्लसेस माइनसेस, उसके सुख और दुख है. तो 1000 से 1200 दिन का रूल मैं बोलता हूँ, सिर्फ झुका के, बिना प्रॉफिट लॉस देखे, बिना प्रसिद्धि देखे, बिना डिस्ट्रैक्शन के, अगर 1000 दिन आप अपने बिजनेस व्यापार धंधे में दे सकते हो तो ही व्यापार में घुसो, अदरवाइज मत घुसो, क्योंकि इट्स स्टिल अ मैराथन. एंड बिजनेस इज ऑल अबाउट अ गेम. ये क्रिकेट की गेम की तरह है कि आपको पहले तो सारे रूल पता होने चाहिए. आपको 10 तरीके से आउट हो गए, अंपायर आउट देगा, नो बॉल पे फ्री हिट भी मिलेगी, ऐसी जिंदगी में और बिजनेस में भी फ्री हिट मिलेगी. आप वायरल हो जाओगे, आपको 25-50 करोड़ की फंडिंग मिल जाएगी, पर वहाँ पे बाउंसर भी आती है, वहाँ यॉर्कर भी आती है, तो आपको डिफेंड करते भी आना चाहिए, छोड़ते भी आना चाहिए, तो आपको वो खेलते आना चाहिए. एंड नोइंग द गेम बाय बीइंग इन ऑडियंस इन द स्टेडियम एंड क्लैपिंग फॉर द शतक और गाली देना ऑन आउट इज वेरी इजी. पर कंपेरेटिवली जब बैट बॉल हाथ में आके गेंद फेंकोगे, पिच पे जाके वो प्रेशर, वो चिल्ला चौट, वो अलग प्रेशर देता है, वो आपको बिल्डअप करता है, मेंटल मसल बिल्डअप करता है, आपका साइकोलॉजी को बिल्डअप करता है, आपका नेचर बिल्ड करता है, आपका कैरेक्टर बिल्ड करता है, और उसमें 1000 1200 दिन 1500 दिन 3-4 साल लगते हैं. तो वो घट्टी है, वो अपने पैसे कैसे है, पहले गेहूं कैसे डालते थे और वो घट्टी में पिसाते थे, फिर आटा निकलता था. तो देयर शुड बी अ न्यूक्लियर घर्षण होगा, तब जाके चिंगारी बदलेगी और चिंगारी से फिर आग निकलेगी.
The one thing that we learned, so when we were going through Y Combinator, one of the things that we learned through a lot of the stories of other successful businesses that had gone through YC in the past was a very common thread, which was just validating how much of a problem this is, right? And for how many people. So I'll just give you an example. The largest food delivery company in the US is this company called DoorDash, right? They went public, I think, 2 years ago. Pretty large company. At one point, post them going public, their market cap was even higher than Uber's globally, right? The way they started, right, was, okay, it seemed like they lived in the suburbs of California, and there was none of the restaurants there used to deliver, and so you had to go drive there and pick up for takeaway and stuff like that. And they wanted to build like a food delivery company, right? Back then, this might have been like 2010 or 11 or something like that. But they didn't go all out and start building an app or any of those things, right? I think so that's not required, right? What they did instead is that they found the menus, right? They scanned them, right? Put a PDF up on a website and said, call this number, which was their phone number. Call this number if you want to get food delivery from any of these restaurants, right? And they just sent that website link out on email and just waited to see if people actually care about this, right? And first couple of days nobody called. Then day 5 or day 6 somebody called and said, hey, I want to get XYZ thing from this restaurant. And these guys were college students at the time, right? Coincidentally also at Stanford. And they left their classes and went to pick up the food and deliver it, right? And then over a few weeks, right, they just saw, okay, and they spoke to customers while they were at the doorstep to say, okay, why did you use this? Would you use it again? Blah, blah, blah. Got feedback. And it became clear to them over a few weeks that, okay, maybe this is a problem that's worth investing some time in, right? And so I think a lot of people think that this is a 0 or 1 thing, and like either I'm building this or I'm not building this. I think that before you get to going all in and spending whatever 1,000 days or 1,200 days on a particular idea, I think it's very easy to actually validate the idea in a very inexpensive or cheap way, right? Like this is DoorDash thing is one example. There's every business will have its own unique way of validating whether or not this is something worth spending time on. So I think do that, right? There's no maths that you can do, right? There's no formula for this. It's just try it out, and then if it seems to you that this could be something big, right, then go and make that time investment. On the second bit about the bootstrapped versus raising capital thing, I think that's more of I think there are some businesses that are like impossible to bootstrap. And if you want to build a defense company or an airline or something like that, it's probably very difficult to do that without any external capital. That being said, for most other businesses, apart from that category of businesses, it's more of a time question, right? Like if I take the analogy of, I want to start a bakery, right? Let's say 20, 30 years ago, I wanted to start a bakery, right? Somewhere, what I would do is I would go to a bank, I'd get a loan for some money, maybe, and I'll start a bakery, right? And then maybe within a couple of months, my loan money is recovered. I start making some money from it. Then I take that profit and I reinvest it in opening a second bakery, right? And then I take the profit from both of them and I open a third one, right? And that takes some time, right? But you can still build a very large business, right? Doing that, it'll just probably take a little bit longer. I think the game of venture capital and all of that is just shortening that time frame and saying, okay, rather than going through that, I'm willing to dilute some part of my business, right, to raise some capital, and then I'll open 100 bakeries all at once, right? And in a few months at that scale, rather than waiting for 5 years or 10 years to open 100 bakeries, I do them all at once, and then within a couple of months of that, all of them are making money, right? And so it's a slightly different way of building the business. I think there's no right or wrong, right? I think for most businesses, you could probably build it both ways. It's just a question of how you want to build it, right? So yeah, there's no right or wrong there either.
I think that's two interesting and fair thought processes. I would just like to conclude this question, right, of, hey, we have multiple ideas, which ideas to pick up. One conclusion that I drive and I strongly believe in is, if that's an idea that you think you might not get paid for the next 5 years and still be excited to build it, that could be one great personal validation. Secondary validation is what KV and PB already told. PB, KV and Prafull already told. But that is one part of it. Two is I really like the point of MVP. I think Prafull did an MVP of setting up his own chai thela. That was his MVP. While KV, for you guys, you will have your own MVP as well. Danzo had WhatsApp. DoorDash, you said the story already. For Growth School, what we did was we didn't know how to build tech, but we wanted to solve for business. So we built everything by learning from YouTube, and we built everything on no code till we got to $1 million in revenue. And that's when we said, okay, there is business, and we should go out and build this out properly. Now we are not on no code anymore, but that was our MVP. Also on the funding bit, right? I think a lot of kids and students are usually very confused because they are all drawn by the attention that funding brings into you, right? In a country that we live in or in the world that we live in, entrepreneurs and startups are weighed based on how much they have raised, which is quite sad and not the right yardstick to kind of measure success. I think that change has to happen, but as young individuals, you'll have to like be cognizant of the fact that, hey, you're here to build and not for PR. And that's where a lot of people get carried away and they think starting a business is raising money. So yeah, I mean, I would say like summarizing everything that you guys said, think of an idea that you're super excited about, build MVP, see if you're getting enough traction. If there is traction, then like already discussed, figure out how do you want to build it. Do you want to scale it fast? Do you want to do it in your own way? There is no right or wrong way of building business. Everything is perspective. All right, I'll jump to Prafull. Okay, this is a question for you. Right, how much money is enough to get started? It's a very important question, which is a tailwind of the question that we just spoke about, right? Because मुझे इतना पता है कि you started with some 10-15,000 rupees of capital for your MVP, right? And today, I don't know how many crores of business you're doing per month, right? And every time there's an idea of an aspiring entrepreneur, irrespective of who the person is, they're always like, पहले पैसे उठाएं कि idea बनाएं, right? So how much money do you think is enough to get started, and how did you go about it?
So I still remember one of my interview of MBA when I cleared CAT and I went to one of the college for an interview, and the topic of GD होता है ना इंटरव्यू में ऐड फिर जाने के लिए, तो कि प्रोफेसर ने बोला कि लिव इन रिलेशनशिप या लव मैरिज या अरेंज मैरिज, तो उन्होंने ऐसा टॉपिक फेंका था. वी वर 5 स्टूडेंट्स इन दैट MBA एडमिशन, तो आई वाज द फर्स्ट इंटरव्यू कि बताओ भाई तुम बताओ. सो मैंने कहा लिव इन और लिव आउट रिलेशनशिप मैटर्स, तो मैंने बोले यू गॉट सेलेक्टेड, यू गेस गॉट आउट. तो अगेन if you say how much amount of money is required for the business, so again, so it's not about money, it's not about the place, it's not about the what do you start, it's all about do you really start, are you really starting first. ये समझने की हमें बहुत ज़्यादा आवश्यक है. दूसरा, it totally depends, and majorly I see in businesses what happens, you can start at any amount. आप 1,000 रुपए से भी चालू कर सकते हो, 5,000 से भी चालू कर सकते हो. If you purchase a domain of a business right now, tell me, it will cost you 150-200 रुपया for purchasing a domain. Don't you think कि ये आपका business start करने का चार्ज आप ईट ला के रख दियो. I always tell कि आपको बहुत बड़ी बिल्डिंग बनानी है तो ज़्यादा समझ नहीं आ रहा है, अगर आप बहुत कंफ्यूज हो तो एटलीस्ट 4 ईंटें, 1 सीमेंट की बोरी तो ला के रख दो. 1,000 रुपये में आपकी 2 सीमेंट की 3 सीमेंट की बोरी आ जाएगी. कल सरिया लाना, परसों गिट्टी लाना, फिर और कुछ लाना, धीरे धीरे सब होगा. अब आपको आज ही करना है, अभी करना है, तो इट विल नॉट मेक सेंस. फर्स्ट. सेकेंड, अगेन लाइक इफ यू आर स्टार्टिंग अ बिजनेस ऑफ, मानो हाथी खाना है आपको, हाथी एलिफेंट बहुत बड़ा होता है, कैन यू ईट हाथी? तो हाथी आप खा सकते हो. जब उसको 2,000 टुकड़ों में आप काटोगे अलग अलग, तो एक एक टुकड़ा रोज खाओ, 2,000 दिन में आप हाथी खत्म कर दोगे. तो आपको हाथी भी खाना है, अभी खाना है, बचाना भी है, तो वो जो जमीन या जो मैकेनिज्म आप सोच रहे हो वो नहीं होगा. Third thing which I do believe, if you really want to start, don't think of money, think of starting something or start working with someone जो already working है. तो वहाँ पे सीखने को उनकी जो रॉ मटेरियल्स है या उनका जो ऑलरेडी वो यूज़ करे, उसी रिसोर्सेज में, लिमिटेड रिसोर्सेज में आप ऑलरेडी स्टार्ट कर सकते हो. वो भी रेंट पे मिल सकती चीज़ें बहुत सारी, या बहुत सारी चीज़ें वो बंदा ऑनर खुद दे देगा कि भाई ये मेरा सेटअप, इस पर तू काम चालू कर दे. समटाइम और टिपिकली कन्वेंशनल जो हमारे जैसे बिजनेस है, टेक का मुझे इतना नहीं पता, बट टेक भी वही है. देखो बिजनेस कोई भी हो, बिजनेस ही होता है. हर चीज़ का एक छोटा पोर्शन होता है. अगर आपका बहुत बड़ा स्केलेबिलिटी का सोचने का है तो उसको एटलीस्ट 5 साल 6 साल में डिवाइड करो. एंड अगेन आई एम टेलिंग यू, वेदर यू गेट फंड्स, वेदर यू डोंट गेट फंड्स, वेदर यू गेट लोन्स, वेदर यू बूटस्ट्रैप, बिजनेस को बड़ा करने में 10 साल लगेगा, मतलब लगेगा. मेजॉरिटी ऑफ बिजनेस IPO लाने तक, बड़ा पैसा कमाने में 7 साल, 5 साल, 8 साल, 10 साल लगेगा. वी सी, if we see funded company, take me, मुझे 6 साल हो गया आज बीच आऊँ. स्टार्टेड फ्रॉम ठेला, 250 करोड़ पे ठेला चला है, 1.5 साल कोविड झेला, उसके बाद भी आज 250 स्टोर पे मैं, करेक्ट. फर्स्ट. सेकंड, इफ यू सी Zepto, इफ यू सी ग्रोथ स्कूल, इफ यू सी एनी कंपनी, ग्रो को देखो, आप कोई भी कंपनी को देखो, यूनिकॉर्न जो बनी है, उनका भी अगर आप इंसेप्शन टाइम देखोगे तो 4 साल हो गया, वो 6 साल हो चुका है, वो 7 साल हो चुका है. एंड टुडे मे बी इन द न्यूज जस्ट बिकॉज ऑफ मे बी PR or maybe their funding or maybe their good business model. But that doesn't mean they're mature or potential businesses. So journey of इधर कान से इधर से पकड़ो कि इधर से पकड़ो, it will take 8 years, 7 years, 10 years down the line. But आपको चूज करना है कि आपको कान कौन सा पकड़ना है. And any business can be start from any money. क्योंकि आप मनी को लेके बहुत ज़्यादा चिंतित हो, पैसे को लेके चिंतित हो, पैसा कब आएगा, काम कब करूँ, तो पहले काम करो, पैसा आए ना आए, काम करना चालू कर दो तो पैसा भी आ जाएगा। अगर सिर्फ पैसे पैसा पैसा करोगे तो काम कभी नहीं कर पाओगे, बिजनेस खड़ा ही नहीं कर पाओगे, क्योंकि आपका ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ लाइफ में बिजनेस चालू करना नहीं है, पैसा रेस करना है या पैसा कमाना है या पैसा इकट्ठा करना हो जाएगा ना। The purpose of starting a business, the purpose of business to evolve business or run it very successfully is to do a business. Meet people, sell your product, फंडिंग सीखो, वीसी पेड सीखो, चलो नहीं सीख रहा बैंकिंग सीखो, बैंकिंग लोन नहीं आता है, चलो ट्रांजेक्शन करना तो सीखो, प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस करना तो सीखो, अपनी बुक्स को स्ट्रॉन्ग करना सीखो, बहुत सारी चीज़, अपने आप को इवॉल्व करना सीखो, मार्केटिंग करना सीखो। मुझे पता था मेरे पास इतना पैसा नहीं था, तो मैंने स्टार्टेड मेकिंग वीडियोस, क्योंकि लोगों को, मैं आज भी करोड़ों लोग हमारी वीडियोस देखते हैं, मेरी वीडियोस देखते हैं, पर करोड़ों लोग हमारे आउटलेट पे तो नहीं जाते ना। So you can start by anything, whether you have money or not.
Awesome. So the investment that you need to start up predominantly is hustle, is what I hear from that. But of course, I don't think, like Prafull rightly said, it doesn't fit into everything and everything. Anything like अगर biotech startup शुरू करना है या जैसे केविन ने बोला तुमको बोइंग का competition बनाना है, तो it's a slightly different story. But I'll jump right into a specific question that I have for Kemi, right? Yeah, a lot of I would say the first time I read an article about Zepto, right? One thing that stood out very strongly is Stanford dropout, who founded this company, raised a ton of money, right? That is what was the signature line, and of course the 19-20-year-old thing kept coming in as well. So it was a beautiful storyline, right, of people. But what a lot of people don't know, and I know of when we spoke as well last time we met, was about the failure story of Kirana Cart, right, where that was your stepping stone. You started something called as Kirana Cart that didn't work out. But I'm sure your last startup had a lot of learnings that helped you to build what Zepto is today, right? What were those few things? Why don't you tell us more about that? And also, like Prafull just said, was Kirana Cart a MVP of what Zepto is today? Because I'm also curious to know this.
In some senses, yes. The problem we were trying to solve is the same, right? So it's not like Kirana Cart was a different solution to the same problem, right? We realized that, so we tried it out. We launched it, and in maybe Jan or Feb of 2021. And within 4 or 5 weeks itself, we realized that, okay, there's a lot of things that inherently are wrong with this model. It will not make money. There's a lot of things broken with the customer experience. And so we decided to pivot, right? So but the problem statement remained the same, right? I was still largely focused on grocery delivery. It was just a very different solution, right? So obviously there are a lot of learnings specific to the business, right? Like specific to how to make grocery delivery work, because we tried a lot of things that didn't work out, and that helped inspire, the thought process behind Zepto. In terms of other learnings beyond just the specifics of the business model, just to set the scene in terms of what Kirana Cart was like. So it was a marketplace type business, right, where we would pick up and drop from supermarkets and deliver to you. Now, the people that were working on it was Adit, me, and a couple of our friends that were on holidays from university that were helping us out, right? And like 4 or 5 of them. And so everything from customer support to all the tech stuff to running the operations to trying to grow the business, like all of that was being managed by us, right? And there were a lot of silly things also that we did. So for example, we said that nobody's delivering 24/7, so we should deliver 24/7. The problem was that we couldn't hire any delivery partners that were ready to deliver in the middle of the night. And so all deliveries after 10 p.m. until like 6, 7 a.m. the next day, we would do, right? And at the same time, we were also managing customer support, like I said. So, oftentimes, like we would take turns doing this, 3 a.m, like every time an order would come, there would be a loud buzzer sound that would go off to wake us up. Someone would go get into an auto rickshaw to go and do the delivery. Other person's on the phone with the customer saying, yes, ma'am, your order's on the way, and handling the customer support side of things, right? And so we learned a lot about, so we made a lot of mistakes, right? We made a lot of mistakes in terms of, how to grow the business, how to manage customer support, how to manage operations, right? And so there are probably like 1,000 mistakes that we made, right? That all ended up being learnings, into Zepto. I think yeah, it would take a really long time to list out all of the mistakes, but it was really helpful, right? Like, I think the one skill that we sort of learned from that experience though was that the best place to learn about your business is just by speaking to customers. And so those late night deliveries, right, while it was a pain in the ass and we weren't really sleeping much, for the few weeks that we were running it, at the doorstep, you have a few minutes to get feedback from the customer and say, what do you like? What do you not like? What we need to improve, right? And that is something that, today is still stuck with us, right? And I think that's where the, speed part of it, the quick commerce part of it came from inside speaking to customers, right? And so, yeah, in terms of learnings, thousands, right? I won't go into each of them. But yeah, that's what I would say.
That's awesome. So Kirana Cart was indeed your, how do I put it, unplanned MVP that led to Zepto.
Something
And
like that.
I'm glad it
Yeah,
failed.
yeah.
I'm glad it failed. Right. Awesome. So Prafull, yeah, this is one question we have met like 20 times. I don't know how many times we have met, but this is one question that I've never asked you, is when you started the business of chai, right? Or chai ka thela tumne laga diya tha. What did your classmates, your parents, your schoolmates, your relatives say? Did they like mock you, try to humiliate you? Like, hua kya tha tab? And like, how did you pretty much deal with it? And also, my second very important question is, like I'm assuming you were profitable from almost day one. I remember this. How much salary were you taking home?
तो यार शुरू में मैं लास्ट क्वेश्चन का जवाब दूँ कि सैलरी तो क्या होती है, मतलब आई बिलीव कि धंधे का पैसा धंधे में जाना चाहिए बस. तो द मनी कम्स फ्रॉम मनी शुड गो बैक टू मनी वंस यू बाकी फ्लाइंग्स है ये सब है, ये होती रहती कंपनी डज केयर ऑफ दिस. एंड अभी भी मैं 30,000 कुछ सैलरी लेता हूँ आप आज करेंटली टुडे. सो ट्राई टू, आई ऑलवेज टेल कि जब आप बिजनेस खड़ा करो, ट्राई टू मेक योर सेल्फ पीछे बिजनेस को आके, सो इट विल मेक मोर सेंस फॉर द बिजनेस ग्रोथ एंड पर्सनल ग्रोथ प्लेस. सेकेंड, वो जब अगली स्टेज पे अगली चालू किया था ना वैभव, वो बहुत मजाक उड़ाया मेरा, बहुत ताने मारे. एंड मेरे से ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम मेरे पिताजी और मम्मी जी को होती थी, क्योंकि मैं तो था ही नहीं उनसे सुनने वाला. मुझे तो बोलते नहीं थे, वो तो पापा मम्मी को बोलेंगे ना, पापा तेरा बेटा ये कर रहा है, बहुत अंग्रेजी जानता था, बहुत दुनिया जानता था, IIMS पे जाना था, MBA करना था, तू तो बहुत. पापा मम्मी नहीं होते जब समाज में कहीं बात तो बात करते, मेरा बेटा MBA करने जा रहा है, मेरा बेटा कैट की प्रिपरेशन कर रहा है. तो वहाँ से फिर खेला वो पे रोड साइड पे. उसके पहले मैंने मैकडोनल्ड्स में 5 महीने वेटर की नौकरी करी थी. आई अंडरस्टूड द फूड इंडस्ट्री वहाँ से जॉब करके. तो वेटर की नौकरी करना, वहाँ पे जो आप बर्गर खाते, प्राइस खाते, वो मैं ट्रे उठा के डस्टबिन में डालता था. वो मैंने 4-5 महीने किया, बर्गर चलता था. तो वो पीरियड जो था मेरे लिए तो बहुत फर्किंग वाला था. मेरा स्टेमिना, मेरा मसल बिल्ड कर रहा था, मुझे अंडरस्टैंडिंग आ रही थी कस्टमर की, कंज्यूमर बिहेवियर पता चलता था. जैसा कैवल्य ने कहा कि द बेस्ट थिंग टू ग्रो योर बिजनेस टू टॉक टू कस्टमर, नॉट टॉक टू पीपल जो आपके टारगेट ऑडियंस है, जो आपका प्रोडक्ट खरीदेंगे, जो आपको पैसा देंगे. एंड वो स्ट्रेंजर्स होंगे. आपका नजदीकी आदमी आपका प्रोडक्ट कुछ नहीं खरीदेगा. यू विल अर्न फ्रॉम स्ट्रेंजर्स एंड यू शुड स्पेंड दैट मनी टू योर नॉन पीपल. दैट्स हाउ द इकोनॉमी वर्क. तो बहुत ताने मारे. दोस्तों ने व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में मुझे मजाक उड़ा रहे थे, तो मैंने लेफ्ट किया. तो उस टाइम पे व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप, स्कूल फ्रेंड नहीं होते, स्कूल के ग्रुप्स होते थे व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप. तो बोले चाय बेच रहा है, ये देखो इसका क्या प्रॉब्लम है, देखो क्या चल रहा है, इसका कुछ नहीं हो सकता, ये इतना हवाबाजी करता था. तो और चाय ठेले पे आ गया. मतलब वो MBA से वो बोल रहे थे ठेले पे आ गए. और तो मैं साला बोल रहा था कि ये मेरा शुरुआत है, मैं टेक ऑफ के नहीं जा रहा हूँ. तो उनको ऐसा लग रहा था कि इसका नीचे जा रहा है, इट्स अ डाउनग्रेड फॉर हिम. तो सो समटाइम होता है ना, बोले एक हिंदी की कहावत है ना, अगर शेर पीछे जा रहा है तो मतलब नहीं आराम करेगा, वो झपट्टा मारने के लिए जाता है. सो दैट्स हाउ इट एक्चुअली स्टार्टेड. एंड मैं उस टाइम पे ना अपना मोबाइल नंबर चेंज कर दिया था मेरे को. एंड आई अनस्टॉल फेसबुक, जहाँ पे लोग मुझसे कनेक्टेड थे, मेरे फ्रेंड्स, फैमिली, उनके आई शुड डिस्कनेक्ट देम, बिकॉज उनका ना इमोशनली अगर मेरे को मेरे मासा जी का या फूफा जी का या सगे दोस्त का फोन आया, बोले भाई क्या कर रहे हैं, ऐसा मत कर. कई लोग हैं हमारे देश में जो चालू करते हैं, किसी का फोन आ जाए तो इन्फ्लुएंस हो जाता है. तो मैंने कहा मेरे को इन्फ्लुएंस नहीं होना है, यू हैव टू कन्विंस योरसेल्फ. बहुत सारे बच्चे यहाँ से एंटर हो गए, मैं उनको बोल रहा हूँ कि आपकी लड़ाई किसी से नहीं है, आपकी लड़ाई इज यू वर्सेस यू. भाई कैवलिया ही कैन स्टार्ट एट 19, तो उसको ना कोई इंस्पायर करेगा, ना कोई उसको इन्फ्लुएंस कर सकता. तभी 19 में ही वुड स्टार्ट ना, क्योंकि ही हैज कंट्रोल ऑफ हिमसेल्फ और हिमसेल्फ ना. खुद का खुद पे नियंत्रण होना बहुत जरूरी है. नहीं तो क्या होता है कि 4 लोगों ने तारीफ कर ली तो काम की स्पीड बढ़ा दी, 4 लोगों ने गाली दे दी तो काम बंद कर दिया. तो यहाँ पे आपको बहुत नैरो थिन लाइन होती है, जहाँ को जिसको आपको पकड़ के रखना पड़ता है. एंड इट केप्ट मी गोइंग. एंड इट वाज नॉट फॉर 1 or 2 months, इट वाज फॉर 2.5 years. यू वॉन्ट बिलीव 2.5 साल तो रोड पे ठेला चला है. उसके बाद मैंने लगभग 200 से ज़्यादा शादियों में, जितनी वेडिंग्स नहीं होती है जयपुर, उदयपुर, जिम कॉर्बेट, ये बड़े अमीरों की जितनी शादियाँ होती है ना, 1.5 करोड़ 2 करोड़ की डेस्टिनेशन वेडिंग्स, मैं यहाँ पर ठेला लगाने जाता था पूरे भारत. फिर अगेन वही वाला कि मैं रोड पे चाय बनाता था तो रोज का 10-15 हज़ार कमाता था. शादियों में मैं जाता था तो 50,000 1 लाख रुपये चार्ज करता था ठेला चाय बनाने का. तो मैंने कहा मैं ठेला थोड़ा इधर कम कर दो, शादियों में ज़्यादा पैसा कमाऊंगा, क्योंकि वहाँ पे बहुत लोग खर्चा करते, करोड़ों खर्चा करते. तो मुझे वो मैकेनिज्म था कि मैं मेहनत तो कर रहा हूँ, पर स्मार्ट वर्क करूँगा. पैसा आम की लकड़ी नहीं काटूंगा, चंदन की लकड़ी काटूंगा. एंड एक और चीज़ कि पेरेंट्स का युवास में, रिलेटिव्स का युवास में, उनको पता ही नहीं आपकी जिंदगी में, आपके मगज में क्या चल रहा है. अब केवल ये जेप्टो बना रहा है, उसको वो ही कैन नॉट कन्विंस हिज पेरेंट्स, हिज रिलेटिव कि वो क्या बना रहा है. बोले बेटा हम तो किराने की दुकान से सामान ले आते, तू 10 मिनट में क्या ऐसा कर देगा. वो बोल देंगे ना क्या कर दोगे उनका. एंड यू कैन नॉट डिसगार्डन और दैट, यू कैन नॉट लाइक यार नहीं मिल सकता है. समटाइम्स यू नीड टू इग्नोर द वर्ल्ड टू बी ऑनेस्ट.
100%, 100%. I totally relate. In fact, I don't know if you guys know the story. Pandemic mein, I was heading marketing and business for a very large unicorn, right? And in pandemic, I flipped and I said, you know what, I want to do something like this. So I started something with a LinkedIn workshop, which was priced at 500 rupees. So people would literally say me like, have you gone nuts? Have you gone mad? तुम हेड ऑफ मार्केटिंग, हेड ऑफ बिजनेस का जॉब छोड़ के तुम 500 रुपये में बच्चों को लिंक्डइन वर्कशॉप पढ़ा रहे हो. लाइक व्हाट आर यू डूइंग? आई वाज लाइक, I know what I'm doing. Give it some time, and that eventually led to growth school. And when that came out, it made a lot of sense. I'm sure KV must have felt it, or like the founders must have felt when they were going out there to deliver. लोग पूछेंगे क्या धंधा बनेगा इससे?
I have a funny story on this point. So I remember when we were trying to pivot to Zepto, right, and do this whole 10-minute delivery thing. I was on the phone with my mom, and I was telling her that we're starting this. We're changing the model. We're going to start doing 10-minute delivery. So my mom grew up in Bombay in Lokhandwala, right? And to enter Lokhandwala, there's Lokhandwala Circle, right, which is like maybe a kilometer, less than 1 kilometer from the building that she grew up in. And I remember her telling me this, on the phone, that even if your dark store is on Lokhandwala Circle, फिर भी 10 मिनट में नहीं पहुंचेगा, right? And so like that was her initial reaction to like the idea of the 10-minute delivery thing.
कैवल्या फिर बाद में 10 मिनट में डिलीवर किया कि मम्मी को आपने कुछ स्पेशल उठाया?
वो तो किया उसके बाद.
नहीं यार, I think if there are not enough people coming and telling you, have you gone mad, why are you doing this, you're probably not doing the right thing, right? If everybody understood what has to be built, then what is the difference between everybody and builders, right? So I think entrepreneurs and founders have to be a little sunky, have to do things which is outrageous. In fact, to the point, when I heard also like 10-minute delivery, I said, boss, this is too good to be true, right? And I was one of your extremely early pre-funded customer, because you guys had your own thela of Zepto outside my Kanakya 7's Bombay building, right? Yes. But you eventually actually managed to pull that off, right? I mean, sometimes 9 minutes, sometimes 11 minutes, but you average it out around that, which before used to be, even our hour used to be a dream, right? Because I know players who used to be like, agar abhi book karoge to kal aayega. There were things like that before, especially with grocery. Food was faster than grocery, but 10-minute thing sounded like have you gone nuts? Or two is, this looks like a butler service, because a 5-star hotel takes 10 minutes after you call to just get a Diet Coke. Like, how the hell do you pull that off? So, dude, I'm very, very keen to know what went into execution of designing this, right? And as all these students out there, how can they start thinking in those lines as well? So, like, not algorithmically, but on a high level, right? Like on a supply chain ops, how does this whole model of 10 minutes actually works? And how did you design it? Or where did you draw inspiration from?
Sure. I'll try to be brief, right? Because if I go into all the details, like that would be a separate hour-long description. So we set up these micro warehouses, right? That are about 3,000 square foot in size in different neighborhoods of the city. So in Bombay, for example, there was one pretty close to your building in Marol, then there'd be one in Andheri West, there'd be one in Powai, and so on. So roughly about a 2.5 kilometer radius is what each dark store or micro warehouse, whatever you want to call it, delivers to. And, these dark stores are typically stocked up with products that are bought directly from brands. So directly from a P&G or a Unilever or ITC, Nestle, Pepsi, whatever. They supply it to these dark stores and the products are stocked up there. We have a team of packers inside each dark store and a team of delivery partners that is stationed just outside each dark store. And so when you as a customer place an order, it gets assigned to the packer and the rider. Packer is a handheld device. So we've basically built a packer app, which we use to navigate them through the most efficient path or the most optimal path through the dark store. Tell them, okay, go here, pick this up, scan this, go there, pick that up, scan that. That allows us to basically have the entire packing process get done in a median time of like 60 seconds, roughly. So within about a minute of your Google Pay PIN, being entered, within about a minute of that, all of the items that you've ordered are in a bag, right? The paper bag that are ready to go. In that same 60 seconds, the delivery partner that's been assigned, they're putting on the helmet and waiting at the pickup point for the packer to complete. There's a quick 5 to 10 second handshake. The delivery partner gets onto the bike, drives to your house, which is like between less than 2 kilometers roughly, average of like 1.6 kilometers away, hands you whatever you've ordered and then comes back, right? So there are two important things that are make or break with a business like this. One is that dispatch, right? Like getting the dispatch done very quickly, right? Like when a customer is putting in their Google Pay PIN, within 60 to 90 seconds, someone needs to be on the bike starting, right? So the whole packing process, the handshake, designing that was pretty important. And the second thing that is often overlooked is something that we call network design, which is basically deciding kahan par kaun sa dark store kholna hai, right? Like, okay, you want to launch in Powai, where in Powai? You're in Bangalore, you want to launch in Koramangala, where in Koramangala, right? Should there be one dark store, 2 dark stores in Koramangala, right? Designing the network such that the distance to each customer is short, is the other crucial bit of doing this. Now, that's what goes into the model. You asked about what is the advice that I would give to think this way? I'll be very honest, right? One realization that we had, when we wanted to start Zepto, we had raised a little bit of capital and we had the realization that this business is incredibly complicated, right? The supply chain, the operations, the last mile, it's a retail heavy business, the tech, building a brand, and we realized that we knew close to nothing about all of these things. And obviously we had tried all these things prior to that with Kirana Cart and made a bunch of mistakes, but not enough where we'll be able to get it right the first time. And so we took a call pretty early to hire a bunch of, a few very strong people, right? People who had done this before at, a logistics company, an Amazon, Flipkart, delivery, done, retail at a D-Mart or a Reliance Retail or any of these other supermarket chains, right? People who had done last mile at food delivery players, right? Who had already they've gone through that same journey of making the mistakes, right? So that we could bring them in and leverage that experience so that they could help figure these things out right the first time. How do you design the internals, like the inside of a dark store, right? How do you design the network, right? How do you hire, thousands of delivery partners? Obviously we could have gone through that journey of us trying it, failing it, failing it. But we just felt that there was probably enough people within India that have tried solving parts of this problem before and are like super specialized in solving that part of this problem. Let's bring them on board so that we don't have to go through that long learning curve. And so that's, I think, one thing that, we ended up doing pretty well is hiring the right people early on.
Yeah, essentially you managed to pull in a lot of mentors, come employees who help you drive the big decision that you guys, mentors, I mean, those employees eventually kind of were mentoring you guys also to kind of do what is the right thing, right? I think that's probably the great way. I think Ritesh and Evan also had a very similar story of having great mentors as employees, like great people who they can look up to come and work for them. And for that, you need to be great. One question that I would like to ask before I go to Prafull again, this is something, it just hit my mind. Here, when you guys reached, how did you manage to raise money? And that too from the biggest of the stalwarts, biggest of the investors in the world, while being freaking two 19-year-olds doing random shit, right? Like that, trying to figure out stuff, and biggest of the investors come in and just put money and say that go crazy. How did that happen? What do you think made them believe that we can trust these two 20-year-olds?
Yeah, good question. We were actually 18 when most of this fundraising was happening. I think we were in stealth, so we hadn't announced it. I think we just turned 19 when we started announcing it and publicly sort of made press releases. But the way we look at this is that it's pretty important to create it's almost like a ladder of credibility. So starting from the beginning, right? Okay, you have an idea. Okay, we built like a really basic app and ourselves were delivering groceries, right? Okay, and it validated that the problem existed and that this was a solution that might work. That allowed us to get into Y Combinator, right? And so then we went through Y Combinator, right? Y Combinator was another level of credibility, and that improved the business significantly, right? We were learning from some great people, right, that had all personally built large businesses before that were advising us, right? And on top of that, Y Combinator is like another layer of credibility, and so that allowed us to raise a seed round, right? And then that seed round was another layer of credibility that allowed us to hire a few people, right? Because for example, if in September of 2020, before we had done any of this, where we just had a basic app, we wanted to hire these people, we would not be able to, right? Because they're like, these are some, at that point, 17-year-olds, like, what are you guys talking about, right? And so that credibility allowed us to hire people. Hiring those people allowed us to continue building the business in the right way, which then allowed us to raise more capital, because now if you're going to a fund and you're trying to raise money from them, and you have a couple of senior executives that have done this before at Amazon and Flipkart, you have a business that's working pretty well, and you've gone through Y Combinator and XYZ before that, that makes the credibility and a little bit better and makes it easier for them to trust you, right? And so it's almost like a ladder, right, that you just have to sort of keep building, right? The capital allows you to hire the right people, and so it's that ladder.
That makes a lot of sense, man. That's very well put, and I totally think that's also probably the right way of going about it to build any kind of business, right? Because I think no credibility is enough credibility. You know what I mean? So it's always a starting point. But Prafull, last question for you: what goes into building this franchising businesses? Okay, I'm very intrigued by how it works, because if I want to open a cafe or a chai store, I can do it. Why should I do MBA Chaiwala? Why can't I do, Vaibhav Sisinty chai, right? Or whatever. Like, I can build my own brand, I can build my own Starbucks, or I can be my own Starbucks. What is the motivation of these people to pick up a franchising business? And also, today, how many stores did you operate yourself before saying that, okay, now I have a playbook and I can enable other people to open my brand? So these are two questions that I wanted answers from both. So Shanafa, if you can help.
So मैं उबर वो बोलते ना, उबर के पास अपना खुद का एक भी गाड़ी नहीं है। सबके पास वो बोलते ना कहानी ना बहुत अच्छे, कुछ तो बोलते उबर के पास अपना गाड़ी नहीं, अमेजोन के पास अपना खुद का प्रोडक्ट नहीं। हाँ, तो इवन MBA चावला, वी डोंट ओन अ सिंगल आउटलेट नाउ. Every outlet is franchisee owned, company operated. So people invest, we operate. So पैसा आपका पीछे का पूरा ऑपरेशन हमारा, जैसे केवल वाज टेलिंग अबाउट Zepto स्टोरी कि यू गेट एन ऑर्डर, यू हैव जोन्स, वेयर हाउसेस जहाँ पे बंदे होंगे पैकिंग करेंगे. सो वी हैव सप्लाई चेन फ्रॉम कच्छ टू कश्मीर. हमारे सब वेयर हाउसेस बने जहाँ से हमारे रॉ मटेरियल सप्लाई होता है, पेपर कप सप्लाई होते हैं, चाय पत्ती सप्लाई होती है, मसाले सप्लाई होते हैं, फिर बंदे भी सप्लाई होते हैं. जो बंदे वहाँ काम करते हैं वो भी बंदे हमारे होते हैं, बिकॉज वी ट्रेन देम हाउ टू मेक चाय. अगर एक चाय बनानी है तो 200 ग्राम अगर चाय बन रही है 200, तो उसमें 125 ग्राम दूध आएगा, 25 ग्राम पानी आएगा, शक्कर इतना आएगा. सो सबके शेशे बने हुए, प्रॉपर एक अलाइनमेंट बना हुआ है कि इसका इतना इतना ऐसा ही बनेगा, SOPs बनी हुई है. फिर सेकंड अवे ग्रेट कंट्रोल ऑफ मार्केटिंग. टुडे इफ यू सी वैभव चायवाला, इफ यू चालू करोगे तो ये कितना देर तक चलेगा, क्योंकि लॉयल्टी इन फूड बिजनेस इज वेरी लो. हर दिन 100 आउटलेट खुलते हैं, 150 आउटलेट बंद होते हैं, क्योंकि लोगों का टेस्ट बंदा होता है. आज भी आप CCD का कॉफी पियोगे, स्टारबक्स की कॉफी, आप 10 साल से सेम ब्रांड का नाम ले रहे हो या 5 साल से सेम ब्रांड का नाम ले रहे हो, बिकॉज इट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू ब्रांड दिस मार्केट, बिकॉज लॉयल्टी इज नॉट देयर. करेक्ट. सेकंड, देयर आर सो मेनी ऑपरेशनल चैलेंजेस प्लस लोकेलिटी चैलेंजेस. केवल ये स्टेट कि हमें नेविगेट करना पड़ता है कि कहाँ पे हमारी जगह रहे वो वेयर हाउस की, ताकि वो 2 घंटे या 2 किलोमीटर या 2.5 किलोमीटर का जो हमारा ड्राइवर है वो कवर कर पाए उसको 10 मिनट्स में. अब आदमी को ऐसा लगता है कि मैं तो डीमार्ट जाके जो सामान खरीदता था मुझे 1 घंटा लगता था, पर उसे ये नहीं पता कि वो वेयर हाउस तेरे घर के बाजू में भी हो सकता है, इसलिए तेरे को 10 मिनट में आ रहा है। तो मैकेनिज्म एक नॉर्मल कस्टमर समझे उसका जरूर नहीं है। तो सेम हैपेंस विद दी एफएंड इंडस्ट्री की यहाँ पे ऑपरेशन चैलेंज होता है, फाइनेंस का चैलेंज होता है। थर्ड चैलेंज होता है रियल एस्टेट। रेंट टर्न्स आर सो हाई टुडे नाउअडेज। एक छोटा शॉप पे आप लेने जाओगे 50,000 लाख रुपए महीने का खर्चा होगा। तो वी हैव दैट मैकेनिज्म ऑफ हाउ टू शॉर्ट इट, हाउ टू कट द इनटू प्राइसेस, प्लस since we have that much amount of outlets to the products or the हम जो items purchase करते हो बल्क में आते हैं, जैसे दे गाइस डायरेक्टली कवर ऑफ पीएनजी से लिया है उन्होंने या हिंदुस्तान लीवर से प्रोडक्ट डायरेक्ट ले लेते तो इनको कॉस्टिंग है, बीच में मीडिएटर्स नहीं है, डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर्स नहीं है, तो सेम हैपेंस विद अस एज वेल। थर्ड थिंग, ये 6 साल में एक ब्रांड बिल्ड हुआ है, कल्ट बिल्ड हुआ है एमबीए चावला। शुरू में लोग हंसते थे, मजाक उड़ाते थे, फिर धीरे धीरे ट्रस्ट बिल्डअप होने लगा। आज बड़े बड़े स्टार्टअप हो गया, आज लिंक्डइन के टॉप 45 स्टार्टअप में 6ठे नंबर पे आए, जहाँ पे जेप्टो भी है, जहाँ पे ग्रोथफुल भी है। तो आप एमबीए चावला जैसे एक नाम जिसपे एमबीए चावला डिग्री का नाम यूज करके अगर ट्रस्ट लिंक्डइन कर रहा है, इतने स्टार्टअप में हमारा नाम हो रहा है, तो देन पीपल फील होते हैं बंदा कुछ तो कर रहा है या कंपनी कुछ तो कर रही है। तो दैट ट्रस्ट फैक्टर इज बिग बिग बिग, क्योंकि टुडे whether you make a big company, whether it's a $1 billion company or a funded company or not, the trust is very important. Getting trust of customer, getting trust of people, shareholders, stakeholders बोलो, investors बोलो, या आपके वेंडर्स बोलो, रिटेलर्स बोलो, या आपके डिलीवरी पार्टनर्स बोलो, वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। और इसको बिल्ड करने में एक छोटी कंपनी को या एक बंदे को अपने दुकान को करने में 4-5 साल लग जाएगा, तो वो इतना टाइम इन्वेस्ट नहीं कर पाएंगे, इतना टाइम लगा नहीं पाएंगे। तो हम बोलते भाई आप ऐसा करो, हम 2 चीज़ चाहिए अब आपसे, एक तो इंटरेस्ट चाहिए, इंटरेस्ट मतलब मुझे करना है, दूसरा इन्वेस्टमेंट चाहिए। 2 आय हमको आपके चाहिए, बाकी सब हम दे देंगे आप। And today we have a great network of outlets, we have great networks of supply, we have a great networks of marketing. Every day without spending much of the money, 0 पैसा, हमारा रोज का सोशल मीडिया का रीच 50 लाख से 70 लाख है। This is a big number. 5 million to 7 million people we reach every day on social media. एंड ऑफलाइन तो अलग ही रूम हमारी चर्चा होती है, कॉलेजेस में हमारी केस स्टडीज हो रही है, स्कूलों में केस स्टडीज हो रही है, वो जो नाम हो रहा है वो तो है, मतलब ऐसा लगता है कि लोग बोलते हैं आपका टीवी पे भी याद आता है कि आपका इतना नाम कैसे हो गया। तो आई समटाइम में वो बताते नहीं आता है, समझाते नहीं आता है कि वी आर समटाइम लोग सोचते आ रही हो मार्केटिंग कंपनी और पीआर कंपनी। सो इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू समटाइम शेयर द स्टोरी कि कैसे आपने बिल्ड किया हुआ। तो आपने लिंक्डइन का कोर्सेज चालू किया, हाउ डिड यू सेव दैट मच 40,000 पीपल को? इट्स स्टिल कि 40,000 लोगों ने लिंक्डइन का कोर्स करना होगा, वो अंडरस्टैंडिंग और वो समझना और समझाना सबको इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट यार।
Awesome. That was super helpful. Folks, what a pleasure always to meet all of you people. Thanks KV and thanks Prafull for catching up. And I hope the audience learned a thing or two out of this. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you, Groww, for doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you.